A very good morning to all the viewers. GST came in as a cure to many of the defects which were there in indirect tax law, and it was supposed to come in as early as 1980. However, it finally came only much later, and it did not come with all the best practices of the various VAT and GST laws which were prevalent in more than 160 countries. Let's look at how we can manage and avoid GST disputes, and consequently also for the practitioners, what are the opportunities in litigation or managing and avoiding GST disputes. We'll try and understand why are the opportunities in GST litigation increasing over time. We will also understand very importantly how we can prevent this particular problem, because it's pretty expensive, and it can also lead to a large amount of cost at a later point of time. We will also understand, as far as practitioners are concerned, why the client comes to us and how you could deal with various types of communication which you have, which may happen at the time of their visit or over mobile, over email, and maybe when they send an inquiry, when there is an audit. So audit, I think, is going to be handled separately, so I won't spend much on that. And maybe use of RTI. We'll examine RTI along with other known and used defenses. We will look at the resources. When we look at lesser used, known, and defenses which are quite effective, we will be looking at what are those aspects of the law which are guaranteed by the Constitution, and the GST cannot overrule such aspects. Also, to know whether there is cause for litigation, possible favorable outcome, we will look at a few of the legal maxims. Why are there increased disputes expected in GST? The CBIC, which is supposed to be only administering the law, has over period of time in GST become the drafter of the law, executor of the law, and also whenever any flaws are found in the law drafted by them, they will amend it either prospectively or retrospectively. And when the law, that is the judiciary, interprets the law in favor of the SSC, they take each and every aspect to the Supreme Court, so that 5-10 years the matter is not clear at all. Therefore, what has happened is what was supposed to be a good and simple tax has become not simple, not transparent, not fair, nor is it implemented properly. Somewhere down the line, we found that excessive delegation by the parliament means that they have forgotten their role to make laws. This has been taken over by the CBIC and the tax administrators, which is a very serious threat to democracy itself. Law is supposed to be made for those who paid the tax, not for those who are evading tax. We see in the last 2 years, lot of laws, some of that not even discussed in the GST Council. You'd be surprised. The recent notification and notification 94, where they brought draconian provisions for registration and other aspects, was not even discussed in the GST Council. The Law Implementation Committee, which is just a couple of bureaucrats, again, as per my suspicion, directed by the CBIC, made that law, and it was passed without going through the GST Council. Therefore, there is a lot of excessive arbitrary law coming into GST. We have seen that in case of fake invoices, I have no, what I would say, plus points for anybody who raises fake invoices. But the people who down the line are getting caught and tax is collected from all the, at every point in full along with the penalty, is possibly without authority of law. You cannot collect tax from more than one person. Here we have cases where 4 or 5 people are being subjected to this collection, and the last person who probably may or may not know anything about the fraud being committed by somebody down the line who is not his supplier gets also penalized. Errors in a few cases are unwarranted. In fact, in most of the cases, let me also concede that it is the guilty only who are put in jail. But nowadays, the guilty goes to jail and after 8 months, he comes out because no show cause notice would have been attached. And he feels that it is worth it. The vast majority of corruption which happens in the rent seeking down the line, where threat of arrest leads to huge amounts of bribes being shared with the errant officers. Remember, every officer is not errant, but we find quite a big proportion there. Draconian measures like freezing the credit ledger, provisional attachment of the bank, registration cancellation, seizure in transit of goods sent by law-abiding, tax-compliant SSCs, some of whom may be paying thousands of crores to the government, is certainly something very bad. What about the smaller people? It means death to their business. If your account is frozen or your registration is cancelled, the right to do business, which is guaranteed under Constitution, under Article 19G, itself is not met. Many of the amendments are at times more confusing and invariably revenue biased and restrictive. Judicial balance has been lost due to court decisions being escalated to Supreme Court in most cases. It becomes uncertain. It is said in the certainty of law lies the right of the citizens. That is the protection they get if the law is certain. Now you have a law which can be changed anytime. It can also be changed retrospectively. Again, you go and fight. It will take another 5 years for that retrospectivity to be decided. In this act, unfortunately, they have taken the easy route of including in the act, which is supposed to be passed again by Parliament, presently not done, as prescribed in the rules. So there are 46 plus such cases where the law itself includes rules, and therefore sometimes the rules become an extension of the law, and the judicial, well-settled principle of judiciary that rules which are not in line with the act will not be valid in law is sought to be reinvented or re-adjudicated, escalated, and then finally the decision will come. Mostly it will say that even this as prescribed in the rules cannot be against the basic tenet of the act. We find also the act is not in line with settled law of the past. For example, in central excise, the classification was decided to be based on categories, and it had become quite simple, and all the classification disputes, most of the classification disputes were put to rest. Now everything is being unsettled. So we are reinventing the wheel as far as classification, sub levy, tax credit, valuation is concerned. Act is not in line with the stated object of GST itself. The 101st Amendment Act stated clearly that cascading has to be avoided. The Prime Minister and the Finance Minister at that time had promised that Seamless credit will be there. All credits related to business will be allowed. Now it's not so. With GST, of course, the service provider got the trading credits and the trading people got the service credits. The manufacturer also got the trading credits in GST. That is something which was achieved, but then it is not seamless credit. There were many unstated objects which were there in various utterances of the finance minister before the budget, during GST implementation, on many forums, like rewarding the honest. This law, let me tell you, does not reward the honest. In fact, the way the law has grown in the last 4 years, it is becoming more and more difficult for the honest to do things properly. He has to also factor in many percentages which are not business related. And therefore, he becomes uncompetitive in the international trade. The Act is not in line with the Constitution of India. We will discuss a few examples of that, though this is a topic in itself. Rules are not in line with the law. I talked of it earlier. GST Council has become a rubber stamp. Fundamental reforms which are needed, many people have made hundreds of representation. All of them are referred to the Law Implementation Committee, and we don't have any information on it. That what has been sent there, what has come back, we don't know. So today, only the noise-making items are taken up, and we see the finance minister towing the CBIC line itself. She has lost sight of what is it that is a good law. I would go forward to say that she is becoming a tool for the CBIC to use, and obviously their objective, as far as I see, is not in line with good for the country. Illegal retrospective amendments have become very, very common, whereas one of the election promise of the BJP government was that there will be no more retrospective amendments, and if at all they are there, they'll only be in favor of the trade and industry. This is a joke. Basic tenets of tax not sticking. You know, the exports are one of the ways in which a developing country like us can get out of the developing country into the developed countries. But for exporters, genuine exporters, I am not talking about the fraudulent people who many times are partners with some of the high-ranking officers of the executive. I'm not talking about those people, money launderers. I am talking about the genuine exporters. You make laws such that the genuine exporters are impacted, and consequently, the local taxes are sticking to the exporters. Petrol, diesel, which were supposed to be, streamlined and got into the GST law, does not seem to be a possibility for another 3-4 years. And that constitutes almost 2 lakh crores of tax credits. So we are actually making the exporters from India uncompetitive. Many people wonder how they can import at lower prices than the very efficient manufacturers in India. This is one of the reasons. Draconian increasing powers. Officers' powers are getting unlimited, and there's no check. Earlier, there used to be a provision which said that whenever officers exceed, you can take action under them. And it is shocking to see that that particular provision has been excluded in the GST law. Fake bills, which is certainly a disease, is also ensuring that the officers do huge amount of rent seeking, multiple recoveries, no adjudication. Such a serious offense, within a month they should take action. Years together they don't take action. So most of the guilty are getting jailed, and even though I have no, as I say, I don't feel good about any of them, and they need to be dealt with strictly, we still live in a democratic country. Even a person who murders has a chance to for his defense. Another terrible exercise last budget which was done is withdrawal of audit by the professional. Why was this bought? Why is audit required? Whether it is in company law where there is no amount involved, or in income tax where amounts are involved. Why is the audit there? Because it ensures that 90% compliance happens at that level only. And in the past, in excise and service tax, it is a proven fact that hardly 5 to 10% of the demands made by the department are finally upheld. However, they are tools of huge amount of corruption. Lakhs of crores of corruption is there here. In the past, when the audit Raj was there, there was an inspector Raj to some extent in the in year 2000 to 2010 under Dr. Manmohan Singh. Those powers were cut down. But then out of that rose the audit Raj. The audit teams sometimes collect bribes which are more than 1 crore rupees. I'm repeating, more than 1 crore rupees. So are we going to see that audit Raj coming back? The way real estate has been handled, the next 20 years disputes will be there. There's no chance at all for the real estate people to have certain law. And whatever has happened till now, there are so many gaps in the law that it will be litigated forever. One major flaw or negligence of this particular government has been the extent to which change management has happened. Training of the stakeholders. For example, we have the deputy commissioners, joint commissioners being elevated to the authority for advance ruling. Most of them are having hardly any idea of the past law of service tax or central excise. And GST has borrowed at least 60 to 70% from those laws. They have not been trained. There is no exam. And they are going to decide what is going to be the future of taxability of various products. Many experts call it the authority of adverse ruling. The only people who are happy with this are the consultants who are fighting in the litigation side of GST. The GST portal has been another sob story. They did take very competent people. They ensure that the GSTN is packed with good, competent people. But the way the law has come about, hardly giving time to the GSTN, what is the objective? The CBIC objective is not in line with what the portal does. When there are amendments made, you don't bother about what will be the impact on the returns. So many things are impossible to upload. So then you find a jugaad way. And tomorrow that jugaad way may or may not be right. The matching notices, which are huge in number, where depending on the what is uploaded by the supplier, the recipient is to take credit. This was supposed to be got into auto mode as and when invoices are raised. Today you have e-invoices after 4 years, applicable only to about 10 to 15% of the transaction. 85% of the transactions are outside the e-invoice. When are we going to reach a point where this will not be an issue? You know that there have been thousands of notices of service tax versus IT. Service tax now being compared with GST, VAT compared to GST, because the officer who is used to that uses that, excise versus GST, income tax versus GST. These are all the issues which are going to come out because of the portal trying to reconcile the figures. Remember, the figures under each of this law can be different because the accounting for each law is dependent on what the law says. There are so many deemed transactions in GST which are not recorded in the income tax or in the company law. Reverse charge, transactions without consideration with related parties could be some of the examples. The analysis of the returns, many of our taxpayers are not able to file returns after doing things properly. And therefore, the return analysis is going to lead to tens of thousands of notices. You may think GST has come so long, then why these notices have not come? Only some of them have come. Income tax versus service tax has come. Some amount of excise versus income tax has come, which is all for the previous, actions. It should have been issued in the time of excise, or it should have been issued in the time of VAT, not after 2017. But now, because the officers are free, they are looking at where all they can give notices. Form 9 is the reconciliation annual return, which is filed under GST. Already we have had some years which are past. All those gaps are going to lead to notices. Form 9C, which is there for larger SSEs. Earlier, it was being certified by chartered accountants. And today, it may be done, it has to be done by the company itself, self-certification. This particular method, these notices, wherever there is a difference, possibly even the professionals will get notices on negligence. ITC is the large part of GST. Say in this year, if we do collect, say around 18 lakh crores of GST, the tax credit involved, which is set off and then 18 lakh crores is paid, will not be less than 50 lakh crores. And therefore, that is a place where a lot of focus is there, and there are a lot of patterns, artificial intelligence is being used, data analytics is being used, and there are many reports pending further action. Why, again, these have not happened till now? One was that we had demonetization, which took a lot of time. Then you had some political issues, election issues. Then, of course, the pandemic. Pandemic has impacted everybody. And as far as the notices are concerned, this is going to be a big impact unless there is a amnesty scheme again. Because as it is with the pandemic, many industries are down on their knees. Their cash flow has become negative. They may not be able to pay for the past misdeeds at all. It may not be practically possible at all. So they would have to close. But is that the purpose of tax laws? To close all enterprises? Then where will they collect tax? But do you think that the CBIC and the top brass are even thinking about it? Whether the FM is thinking about it? I don't know. Unless their hand is forced, I don't see them taking any action nowadays. Huge outcry. Revolution type has to happen as far as GST is concerned for putting this back on track. Maybe the entire law of GST has to be recast. What are the areas of litigation? First, we looked at why the litigation will increase. The areas of litigation, the possibilities are constitutional challenges, legal maxims. Legal maxims can be many. For example, a supplier is not complying with something. He uses fraudulent ITC to pay his taxes. How can the recipient know about it? But today's law requires that the recipient reverses the credits, pays the penalty and interest for the wrongdoing of the supplier. Is not the supplier being taken action against? 95% of the cases, yes, supplier is also liable and he also pays. Then why are you catching the recipient? So what is this legal maxim which supports you here? Even though the GST law is clear that you cannot take credit if supplier defaults. If supplier does not pay properly, then you are held responsible. How can you be held responsible? The legal maxim which says that what is impossible cannot be asked to be mandated in the law. This would mean that something which is impossible and asked for in any part of GST is something which cannot be implemented at all. You go to the court, they'll give you relief. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, this could be taken up and they would take it up to the Supreme Court so that another 5-10 years will go. Circulars have become another bugbear. The circulars are actually understanding of the GST law. They are supposed to explain the law. They are supposed to remove the blunt edges of the law. But today, circulars are used to collect taxes. They may not be in line with the law. They will take a revenue biased view for each and everything, which will be unreasonable for the trade, and therefore they will fight. But then you have to go to the court and get that circular struck down. This will take maybe a year. And then that circular will be withdrawn. Another circular will be put in place after taking care of what the court says. This is the way the law is being administered today. Retrospective amendment I've already talked about. The definitions, including the definition section and also definitions in relevant chapters, are far from well drafted. There are at least 20 to 30 examples of definitions which are going to lead to various types of disputes. Then, of course, as I said, they have recast the classification. Well-settled classification principles have been left aside. So, and you have one fitment committee. We don't know what gets referred to the fitment committee. What is the what are those things which they give back? Whether they are looking at everything. Many of the fitment committee recommendations blindly accepted by the GST Council. GST Council is supposed to be an authority who is going to examine everything in detail and give out a fair law. As I said earlier, GST Council now has become merely a vassal subsidiary to the CBIC, one of the, what I would say, divisions of CBIC. Then you have this fitment committee, bureaucrats again, and the law tax implementation committee, which is again with bureaucrats. So where is this independent application of mind done? ITC I already talked about. Valuation, they don't look at the trade at all. Even our Honorable Prime Minister this year has said that the law should follow the trade. But here you have a law which doesn't bother about what the trade does. And this is going to lead to large amount of litigation. And obviously, valuation is an area where large amount of disputes will come. The levy itself, as I said earlier, supply, including deemed supply, where there will be a lot of issues. Schedule 1 has a list of supplies which will be liable for GST, even though there is no consideration. Then you have Schedule 2, one more confusing schedule, where they have said that these are the type of activities which will be considered as either a service or as a supply of goods. When GST was supposed to be implemented, they said that there will be no difference between the rate of tax between services and goods. Unfortunately, that is not what has happened. Now you have different rates within the goods, within the services. And if I say something is a service or something is really a service, the department can say, no, this is supply of goods, or vice versa. Then you have Schedule 3, which is supposed to be a list of items where it is neither goods or services and therefore out of the GST law. Again, this has been made in a very restrictive manner, and especially in case of extraterritorial transactions, services provided and received outside India, or transactions in real estate. They exclude land and make only land. They don't say those which are deemed to be or that which is a part and parcel of land. So there are large number of cases sitting in Supreme Court for last 15 years related to royalty, etc., where on one side it is said to be a benefit arising out of land, and on the other side it is said that no, only land is excluded in GST, and therefore this was a problem in service tax also, continuing into the GST. The place of supply, again, best practices across the world have been in exceptional cases not applied, but this is also going to give a lot of problem, and many of the states are going to take the government to court. Today, why is it not happening? 4 years up, no state is taking the government, maybe because of the dictatorial type of activity which is happening. GST Council, as I said earlier, dysfunctional. The time of supply is unreal for real estate. The reality is that real estate cannot be expected to follow this at all. It is impossible to follow. At least for the sake of the law, they should have made certain things which are practicable, but they have not done it. 4 years they have not done. I don't know when they are going to rationalize this. They come up with many solutions. Each solution is worse than the earlier. They want to solve a problem, they make it worse. And what happens is, unfortunately, litigation will increase. For example, in real estate, anybody who goes for that 1 and 5% has to reverse the credit. Now that point on what he has to reverse, is it legally valid to reverse, is not at all clear. The reversal which has been set out in the law under Rule 42 is illogical. There are many people who can misuse this, but the law says that. So who can stop somebody who is following the law and gets an unjustified return? The maximum amount of disputes which we expect in this area, as I said earlier, this year, that is 21-22, there may be around 50 to 60 lakh crores of credit taken. Even if 5% is the difference, just look at the amount of disputes which will be there. There will be about 3 crores of litigation, 3 lakh crores of litigation in only input tax credit in the coming years. There could be many more possibilities. I will touch on some of them as and when it is appropriate, since we are going to cover much more today. One of the ways which I always believed to avoid disputes in any tax, whether it was central excise or now GST, we can prevent problems. That is the best way of going forward. We can avoid the problem. But why should we do it? Let me tell you why. Number one, this present executive of GST is not in a hurry to tell you what are your mistakes. What is the reason? Because penalty anyway they are going to collect from you. They'll also collect interest on all the alleged infractions and mistakes you have made. And is there a choice? Can we get the interest waived? Highly unlikely and not possible also, unless in exceptional cases court may look at it. Not waived, they will reduce it possibly. So say there is a mistake which you are doing, which you have done in 2017-18. Why is it till now? We are in 21-22. Those mistakes have not been highlighted to you. That's because till 2024, they can make the demand. One, because they're inefficient. Second, they know that all these demands we will make later. There is, of course, a concept of genuine mistake and mistake where you have connived, where you have misrepresented, where you have suppressed information in the returns. For each of these, there are hundreds of case laws. for against. But very, very clearly, as per my understanding, avoiding payment of interest and penalty is going to make a difference in your business. Remember, today, nobody has margins of 20-30%. 2%, 3%, 5%, 10% could be the margin one is making. How can you afford to pay the interest for 5 years at the rate of 18% or 24%? It will come to 125% of the demand. Other than, remember, 100% penalty. So you are talking about, if there is a demand made for 100 rupees, you are talking about almost 250 rupees being paid to rectify the demand, to comply with the mistake. 250% of the taxes which you are supposed to pay, you will have to now pay. Will you be given set off? You don't know. In normal course, what happens in business is you buy something at 100 rupees, all the raw material or the traded goods, do whatever you have to do. And after that, when you sell it, after doing the value add, you are selling it at 120 rupees. GST is payable on what? Only the 20 rupees, which should be only 3.6% in normal course of 18% rate. 3.2 should be. But look at it now. You'll have to pay 18 into 2.5, which is almost 44% or something. Can any business survive? And that is why I think it's very important for us to avoid and prevent mistakes. I've got a few thoughts on that. The first and most important reason why there could be mistakes is that many of us, whether we are in the employment or we are as consultants, we came from the earlier regime. We were good at either VAT or in central excise or in service tax, a little combination also, maybe. So what happens when GST comes? GST is not either VAT or service tax or excise. It's an amalgam. More of central excise, and for services, more of service tax concepts have been carried forward. So can I use the VAT thought process for these transactions of services? Absolutely not. Therefore, the first method of avoiding mistakes is to unlearn and forget about concepts which have not been carried forward into GST law. Some concepts, of course, have been carried forward. There, you have to know the old law and stress it. Many of the times in Indian businesses, we have got this, method where we are looking at bank loans. Banks are very, very, what I would say, difficult to get money from, even for a genuine person. One goes through some bad time, bank immediately freezes. And therefore, you have to show that your turnover is sufficient, your stocks are sufficient. Is this the correct way to do business? I am not a businessman, but ground realities are there. And businessmen are the people who are keeping this whole country alive. They are the creators of wealth. It is not us, the consultants, nor the CBIC or the government of India. All of us are drains on this wealth. And as of now, maybe we are not even doing a good job. Unfortunately, even for consultants, I would say that. So the short-term accommodation for working capital is something which is being done for purposes of bank loan as well as for paying the taxes at a later point of time. Take a wrong credit, then again reverse it in once things get settled. But what if things don't get settled? Then that wrong credit remains a wrong credit. Somewhere after 5 years, that wrong credit will come with a demand of 24%, and you will have to pay through your nose. Maybe you'll have to shut down your business, or your client has to shut down their business. The errors in filing of returns. We are a society where 80% of our businesses are unorganized. They do not have qualified accountants. They have somebody who comes and does some accounting, and that person is responsible for filing the return. Are the basic entries being made properly? Are backdated entries also being done? Are errors made in filing the return? Is reconciliation done before filing the return? Is the GSTR 3B, which is the place where we are saying that how we are paying the tax, whether through the tax credits or through cash, whether that has been done properly, whether we are reconciling the income tax figures with the GST figures. Remember service tax. Tens of thousands of notices have come because of the difference. How can we go back to 5 years, 6 years and find out what was the mistake done by somebody who did it, who is no longer available with us? There is also one problem: customer instruction driven, lower tax rates being applied. For example, the railways. Railways is part of government, but the railways itself gives you orders which mandate you to pay only 5% GST, whereas that particular product is liable at 18%. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to give up such a large client because of that 5%? In such cases, you may have to really look. What is your margin actually? Is it possible for you to pay 18% but invoice only 5%? Take good advice and see that you keep the department informed about how you're dealing with these railway transactions or other transactions with government. In fact, the infrastructure part of the contracts which come from the government of India are totally at cross purpose with GST norms. Every contract should come GST extra. You see the government contracts, they're all GST inclusive. So what one will do, one will try to either claim an exemption, and there is so much of confusion in exemption, as I said. Recently, there was a wonderful decision of the Supreme Court where they differentiated the earlier Supreme Court decision of Dilip Kumar, which in my understanding was too harsh. Mother Superior Convent 2021 decision of the Supreme Court says that where there is an object of facilitating, where there is an object of doing something good, then you should read exemptions liberally. This was my understanding for quite some time till Dilip Kumar came, after which I had nothing to say because Supreme Court had taken a considered view which I felt was too harsh. Anyway, the subsequent decision of Supreme Court validates my earlier opinion. But this is also a problem, and most of it is created by government itself. So government gives orders where they say all inclusive. The person who is contractor is told, sometimes advised unofficially, that it's only 5%. But finally, the demand is made by another wing, which is asking him to pay 18%. Sometimes he is told to pay 12%, but the demand will be for 18%. So can we ensure that we classify properly, see that which is the exemption we need to take, keep the department informed, and then go ahead. This will avoid the demand, or at least even if the demand is there, you can defend the demand beyond limitation period of 3 years. Many of us, Google, solves many problems nowadays. If I have a leg pain, if I have a throat pain, if I have a stomach ache, I don't have to go to the doctor. Google Mama will tell me. Whether it really solves the problem or not, I don't know. But Google is a wonderful place to learn. In fact, we use it extensively for learning about subjects which we have not been taught. What about oral? India depends on only talk. I call up somebody, I am blind, I am calling up another blind person, or I am calling up somebody who is half blind, and I am asking him his opinion. He will tell me what he is doing is right. Then I follow him. So he is wrong, I also follow the wrong. What's going to happen in the end? Don't take oral advice from people who don't know the GST. Please take proper advice and don't go to the department. They have not learned GST at all, so they cannot teach you anything. In fact, they may put you into a problem. Don't worry, they will say and send you, and you think you are safe. After 5 years, when you get the notice, if you go back to that officer, he will lift his hand. And what can you do to him? He has given you oral advice. Take it in writing. Ask him to give it in writing. WhatsApp opinions. Oh my God, I see some WhatsApp opinions and I get scared for the industry. Absolutely unconsidered opinions are being, bandied about. Somebody takes an opinion which say even I have issued, and what they do is they make editing, in my opinion, and then put it as their opinion in the WhatsApp group without my name, of course, which is, thank God they are doing that, at least removing my name before they alter the opinion and put it in WhatsApp. Remember, it's not only my opinion. Every hack in town is a GST expert. You talk to the taxi driver, he'll talk about GST. You talk to anybody on the road, he will talk about GST. Everybody has an opinion about GST, but only rely on written opinions given by people who have understood GST. At least in the consultant's office, you should have a few books of GST before you rely on it. There is also one more, very poor replies to inquiries which lead to untold misery. First of all, should you reply? Is a question. Next is, what is it that you should reply? Should you only reply what has been asked rather than giving all sorts of information which are asked on telephone by that officer who is only interested in how he can line his pocket? Department audit fallouts, buying peace. I'll buy peace from the department. Forever I have to lose that credit. Forever I have to pay tax which I cannot recover from the customer. How will my business survive? So this buying piece from the department, if it is some tidbits, okay. If it is anything substantial, be very careful. It can become a problem. Erroneous refund. Many people are doing it in my industry. They are claiming refund. We know it's not eligible, but we'll claim because it's being given. We'll go through this fellow or that officer or this officer is giving relief. He will give the relief. Tomorrow he will be shunted to some other department. But you will have to pay the entire refund back along with penalty and interest. Be very careful. Claim only what is due to you. There is, of course, a large amount of negligence in filing refund claims, which leads to it being rejected. And then again, you have to fight, and then the time limit issue comes. Knowledge process outsourcing in India has taken a very big leap in the last decade. And GST also is something which is not immune to it. So you have large amount of people who come to you and tell you, don't worry about GST, we will take care of it. Give us this much per month. From start to end, we will take care of it. For the next 5 years, there will not be any notice, and they will ensure this notice is not there. After 5 years, they'll leave you. Then the notices will start. Where are you going to go? So don't give your whole process out to the untrained. Are they competent? What are their processes to learn about GST? Do they have expert level knowledge? Can they actually support you in case there is a mistake? Are they following good professional ethics? All this is very important because any of the negatives in this can lead to huge amount of demands in the next. The errant tax evader, fake bill creator or receiver, avoid. Even if you have a doubt, when you go to purchase and you find somebody selling steel or plastic at lower rates, you have to think twice. Most probably they are cheating on the taxes, and that's why they are able to reduce their price by 5%. In a trade where the entire band of profit is 3%, how is somebody able to give you at a much lower rate? Please think about it. Granules, plastic granules, huge thousands of crores of fraud is being done in this. There are very few manufacturers, Reliance being one, and Reliance does not sell to traders this particular raw material, but only to the actual user. So there is an actual user who frauds and gets the material, then he sells some of this in the market without bills to those who are manufacturing items like buckets and household goods using plastic. and they sell the bills to somebody who wants the credit. Now, if you are one of the receivers, you might be doing it 5%, you might not be doing it, of course. Those of you who think 5-10%, I will do this, please stop immediately. Remember, this is all getting easily tracked and you can get caught. From consumption side, you can get caught. Also, when the fake bill creator is put in jail, he is going to give your name along with every dispatch he has made to you. And the entire credit you lose along with interest and penalty. Supplier does not comply. So how can I ensure that supplier, if he doesn't comply, what I should do? I can do some things. For example, I can grade all my suppliers into A, B, C, depending on compliance, the time for which I have dealt with him, his general, dealing with me, is it clear? Once I grade it, then I can have a differential method of payment to him. As far as the C category is concerned, only after I am totally convinced about the tax having been paid, for which the supplier has to give me evidence, I will pay him. For B category, we'll have to have somewhere in between. We'll pay him, but we'll keep enough money in our creditors for reducing it in case there is any non-compliance. And for A category, you don't have to borrow the other compliant people. Remember, when you deal in business, 70% will be in A category. Anyway, only the rest of it will be in B and C. So this is a mistake which many people make. And then they get into a problem because the supplier suddenly disappears or he winds up his business. We don't know because these people are all well connected with the department and they know in advance what is going to happen. And they take a lot of measures to ensure that the demand will not stick to them. When there is an investigation of the supplier or customer also, you can get into trouble. And therefore, you have to be very clear that you are dealing with the proper people. Remember, customer need not be only a private company. It could be government. The policies which they follow can be faulty and you can be in trouble. Disgruntled employees is something which is very, very important. If you have a disgruntled employee in your GST compliance, please get rid of him immediately. Replace him because he can create havoc for you. Unethical advisors. Many of the advisors want you to get into problem. They want you to get a notice because once a notice is issued, it takes its own course, goes on for 3, 4, 5, 8 years. In the meantime, the consultant is milking you. So first the ethics of the advisors, then the knowledge of the advisors. Two things you should be very, very carefully evaluate and then only take them as advisors. Always insist for all advice in writing. Even if you call them, you should say, please confirm on email. Sometimes the mistake comes from the competitor. Therefore, when you get the notice, you should evaluate how did this come about. Is it some competitor? If it is some competitor, you can come to know by the type of examples the department officers give. And in case it is so, please do mention that we hope that this is not coming from some pressure of the competitors, like so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. You can even mention them because finally you have to safeguard yourself. The advance rulings are creating havoc, as I said earlier, and many of them are revenue biased. And therefore, you don't have to bother about the advance ruling because they are not applicable to you at all. Unfortunately, in India, social media, newspapers, all irresponsible. They take an advance ruling and put an article of 1/4 of a page. Advance ruling is what? It's a decision of a bureaucrat, that's all. How can you put this in the newspapers? It is not a good law at all. High Court onwards is all responsible newspapers should put in the newspapers and not this advance ruling. Though advance ruling will have a lot of debate because it's so idiotic. Papadums, sanitizer. You see how many such things are coming. Even yesterday, I saw some advance ruling in the business line being discussed. There's no need to discuss it because it's not even a good law. Why the client, when does the client come to us? Let's understand. This is, I'm talking about practitioners. Most of the time, at the time of registration, he wants a registration. At that time, please understand, What are the other entities he has? Is he dealing with, related entities? Is this just a form of claiming some composition, advantage because you have finished the 150 lakhs of that composition limit in some other enterprise? People come to us many times for filing of return, especially the smaller people have no way of filing the return. It's so complicated, changed so many times. Dates are almost, for this pandemic, they gave some concessions. Why did they bother? They should have simply let it go. They should have said returns can be filed at the end of the pandemic. That's it. And no interest, no late fee. No, they will put all the things, then they will come back and give some benefit. Is the benefit of any use? 18% interest if somebody has to pay for delayed payment, how is he going to? He is facing money, he is facing problems with money to pay salaries. Should he pay salaries or should he pay GST? They are just not understood ground realities. All these concessions, bunkum concessions. Government should have taken the helicopter view and given simply in this terrible time, they should have given support to the industry, especially the small industries who are maximum impacted. Remember, none of the big guys are impacted. You have seen the Ambanis, Adanis, and all the way they are rising in the billionaires, ranking. None of them have lost. None of the big people. I'm not only talking about those two. Rich people don't lose, they make more money. Simple. So it is the small people who are to be taken care of. Somewhere we have lost sight of the fact that we also should take care of the poorer people. Poverty in India in pandemic has increased. And what about the other people who are well off? They are getting fat. 72% increase in the weight in the pandemic period. You can well imagine which portion, which is that 72%. Understand the impact of GST. You have to, they don't understand the impact, they come to us. They come to us only for doubtful issues. Are everybody seeking written opinion? Very few. Most of them oral opinions. You know what happens in case of oral opinions. Many of them may be wrong. 50% may be wrong as per me. Very few ask for written opinions, and that is the MNCs, the people going for IPO and the bigger clients. One of the suggestions is, at least for the medium and larger people, is to get regular reviews ongoingly done. They need to also see that the staff is trained. Who's the client staff? Because if they make a mistake, how can you rectify it? The purchase people, the sales people, they all need to be compliant with GST to the extent they need to be. Very few people do this except, again, MNCs, IPOs, bigger clients. Need to get advance ruling. Don't go for advance ruling unless you are making a government supply and you need to get an advance ruling to get that tax from the government. The brush with the GST officers is something which happens, and that's when the client comes to us. Suddenly you have the DGGI coming or the local person coming, asking all sorts of questions, behaving in a very high-handed manner. That time the client rushes to you. Inquiry letters, many of them are fishing expeditions. If 100 letters are given by the state tax department, 90 of them will be frivolous. They are only to collect some money from you or to create a nuisance value and set up a returnership. Calls, why should they call when there is a information technology available? Mail seeking information. What is this mail? Mail is a Gmail account, personal Gmail account of some officer. Why are they not using the mail account which is available? There is an official email account. Why are they not using the portal to put your matter there so that they can compromise with you and then nothing will happen? So at that time, you have to find out whether it's an official inquiry or unofficial inquiry. Sometimes when we do audit or when we have an internal audit or we come to know something, we come to know that we have made mistakes. Better to rectify them immediately. Immediate, as fast as possible, so that you limit your exposure and also ensure that the credits are not denied. Then there are investigations and summons. These are subjects in itself. Some of it I will touch on as we go further. Then you have show cause notice, appeal, and this is like a bullet out of a gun. Even if it is an incorrect show cause notice, it may take a lot of time to resolve because the department may, in most cases, 90% cases, they will confirm everything and then you have to go to the tribunal. Till now, there is no tribunal set up. 4 years of no tribunal is there. So you have to go to the High Court. Can you go to High Court every time? High Court will most probably not entertain you. So where is the justice? Justice has to be given fast. Here we have a case in GST. Justice is always late. Justice delayed is justice denied is what is a very old principle of understanding. When you are dealing with oral communication, what is it that you can do? Now I'm looking at the solutions, right? First was how to avoid. Now I'm saying, okay, there has been a problem or there is a perceived problem from the department. How do I understand? How do I deal with this? Note down the date of the oral communication from the officer in your notebook. Maybe it is continuing after maybe 1 or 2 oral communication. Put it in writing. We are not saying have panga with the department, start having a fight with them. There's no use. This will only create some anger against you, and some officers are really what I would say vindictive. They will teach you a lesson, means they will go to all extent, because what happens in this stage, they are protected. Even if they are vindictive, there's nothing you can do against them. Even if you file a FIR against them, it is going to be thrown out at a later point of time. While dealing with them, be straight and truthful. Don't give wrong information thinking that will go away. If in doubt about yourself, check, get it in writing from experts and then provide it to them. Many times suggestions and demands, sometimes even threatening demands, are made by the officers. First, revert only after reviewing what he's saying with somebody who's knowledgeable and say that we will revert, we will pay the taxes if required as decided by our consultant. This is something you are well within your right to say. Insist whatever they say, tell them to give it in writing. 50% of the issues they raise will not come in writing at all. So you have already avoided 50%. Only 50% you need to take. Always in all oral communication, intimate in writing to the officer, and for important matters, even mark a copy to the higher person. Dealing with the visits to or by the department. Avoid visits to the department. Now, especially with COVID, tell them we'll do it on DC and record it. Use RPAD, speed post for intimation and filing. If at all you are giving if they have asked for some information, use the RPAD speed post. Email also is possible nowadays. Ensure the email ID is an official email ID. Use the help desk properly. Take screenshots. Recently, the court has said, you can't expect people to take screenshots. Do they expect that your uploading will fail? Is your infrastructure so bad? Don't expect them to give evidence that they have done the screenshot, but I am advising you, please take screenshots and follow up with the department, put it on record. Remember, you can put all this on the GST portal itself. So it cannot be something which department tomorrow can say, we don't know about this. You didn't communicate to us. They cannot say, because GST portal can be used for all your communication. Discuss the purpose of the visit. Be straight and clear in communication. Don't get into this, I know somebody somebody who knows somebody and we'll get something done. Don't get into all this now. In this law, it's not worth it. Earlier, when the officer had all the discretion, maybe that time you could have used it. Now it's not at all that important. After the visit, again, give it in writing. Intimate all the suggestions provided by the officer and your understanding. Visits by department, ask for authorization. Many of them just try to flash it and they try to act very unhappy if you ask them for a copy of it. Please ask them for a copy. If they don't give it, in your next reply, you should say they did not give a copy even though asked. Because if somebody has come saying that you are doing something wrong, then he should have a reason to believe that you have done something wrong. He cannot come and fish around. We have seen people who have come to a neighboring factory and then they come into the next factory and they create chaos in the next factory. That next factory was not even in their thought process. But when they came to the next factory, they saw this factory, got suspicious, entered, and unfortunately, these people are, medium sector or small sector, they get scared by the officer. This is something which is to be avoided. Provide the required information asked by the officer. Don't try to say that, okay, we'll throw this letter in the dustbin. Record the submission of information documents in writing. Always, what you have given them, you should put in writing. And there can be no oral agreement on anything, whether it's a demand or anything like that. Don't pay taxes on interpretational issues. They will say, it is our view that it's like this. Remember, they are all unread, untutored, untrained officers. 90% of them are like that. 10% will be knowledgeable, no doubt. Until they give you in writing and you confirm, don't pay anything. This is the place where you get compromised because of their threats of closing down factory, freezing your account, putting you in jail. You say that, okay, let's get rid of them and do something. That's not the way, because that money will never come back. Use of RTI. This is a very powerful tool, but then you require to be very vigilant and do all this. RTI application can create a huge impact on these people. Remember, they are guilty people. And once you put a RTI application, it goes to the file of the person responsible for not giving that information also. Whether they give the information, whether they delay the information, remember one thing, this will put a huge fear into the minds of the guilty, especially the guilty. Escalation is another reason for RTI. But we don't know where to escalate, where to write. Wherever you go, there is a blank wall coming. No, I am not responsible for this. Somebody else is responsible. One of the ways is to put in RTI. Ask them for the name, address, and email of authorities who have to be approached as per law for escalating the matter. They will have to reply, and then you can follow that. And when you follow that, if that authority says that I am not responsible, give him the RTI answer itself. And remember, the moment all these problems come, the matter will be withdrawn. No more, you will not hear of it again in the next 10 years. RTI also can be used to collect data. There is a lot of slip between the cup and the lip, they say. What is actually in the record is something which is nothing against you. There is a clean chit in all your records, in all the documents which are there on your file with the department. But they will seek something from you. That time, if you are a genuine person, make an application for what is there on the file. So you will get the file notes which have been given by various people. And you may see there is nothing there. The moment you ask for the file notes, this particular crusade against you or that investigation against you will be dropped. In cases where you find that there is a lot of corruption, there are, already you've got feelers that you can contact this person, pay 10 lakhs and get away from here. This is the time when you possibly can also make an RTI asking for jurisdiction and also asking whether there are other cases like this with the department. In refunds, this works a lot because the people who are collecting, the errant officers who are collecting a percentage of the refund, obviously they have to give the refund early. So you can simply make an application saying that in the month from January 2020 till today, which is June 2021, please give us the list of all the refunds which have been applied for and given, that is sanctioned, along with the name of the SSC. Finished. This particular thing is like a Ramban for the refunds. At least your refunds will get cleared faster. Pre-audit, I think I'm going to leave this pre-audit and post-audit because you have a specific segment on departmental audit. So I'm not going to take all these. I will touch on the constitutional, possibilities. The preamble to the Constitution you should read. Whatever is there in the Constitution, only that can regulate you and me being Indian citizens. Anything outside the Constitution, anything against the Constitution, just not possible. What are those examples? Article 12 to 35, very important. Some of them I have mentioned here. Equality before law. You can't treat equals as unequal. In fact, there was a decision, very good decision given by the Orissa High Court in 2019, which said that the ITC credit should be given even for people who rent out the premises, because ITC is available for a person who sells the premises. Both are supplies. How can you differentiate between a supply and a renting? On renting also there is 18%, and on the construction service provided also there is 18%. Then how are you differentiating? They have also, of course, read down the restrictions which have been put in the law under section 1718. There is a right to freedom. I spoke of it earlier. You can't attach the bank accounts on your whims and fancies without having just and valid reasons. Remember, this department full of rogues. They will come to you and they'll try to attach your bank account. Go to the court at that time, because it is a right which you have to continue your business and profession. They cannot simply come and randomly attach your bank account, freeze your credit register, cancel your registration. There is also a principle of double jeopardy. You cannot be punished for the same same mistake twice. Right to education, right to form associations. You have these continued, what I would say, disputes on the resident welfare associations. After fighting for 12 years, Supreme Court finally said that it is not in line with the Constitution and one cannot provide service to oneself. That is RSW to its members. Calcutta High Court had held it and went to Supreme Court. Supreme Court finally validated it. When did it validate? When did it validate is important. It validated 2 years after the service tax disappeared. Now we have GST. Now we will fight it in GST. Again, it will go to Supreme Court. Till then, there will be 20,000 litigations in RSW. Very important aspect, Article 265, which says that no tax shall be levied or collected except under authority of law. Remember, GST is also a procedural law. Hidden in all these procedures are also some weapons for the tax compliant. Mafatlal Industries gave a very lengthy order. It will take a few weeks to read this order, but only parts of the order certainly you can look at. Article 289, exemption of property and income from union taxation. GST is a union taxation. Can they go to the property and its income? This is why your rental, this is why the taxation of properties, that is the sale of property, are all undecided matters. When did this come? From 2004, we are fighting this, and till now we don't have a clarity on whether the tax should be there on this or not. Many of the items are sitting in the Supreme Court. Article 269A, I have used IGST to pay SGST. Is that something which, instead of paying SGST, I use IGST or either way? How am I bothered? Some accounting, some principle of federalism. Let the union and the state sort it out. Why are they coming to us? There is also, very importantly, under Article 226, I can go for a writ. Arbitrary law. Government simply puts laws. There are at least about 7-8 cases where arbitrary law in GST has been said to be not a law. Examples: 2A and 3B are not law. Now they have made another amendment saying that it is deemed to be the law retrospectively from 2017. Whenever the courts give clarity, these people go and make a retrospective amendment. The other one I already talked about, so I will not repeat. 243X, power of municipalities to levy, collect and impose taxes is something which the state government can do. How long will the state governments not do this? I expect the day the compensation cess is removed, 2022 it's supposed to close. but because of pandemic, maybe another 1 or 2 years, it may be extended or forced to be extended. But after 2024, municipalities will again start their old tricks of taxing. State governments will endorse it because they want to increase their revenue. Remember, we are supposed to be in a cooperative federalism where the central government seems to be making it into a center-driven country. But it may not happen. Constitution has enough safeguards, and when it comes to it, I'm sure there are state governments which are going to go to the Supreme Court, and you will have the powers of the central government being whittled down. Already, there is a murmuring. You know that in this COVID situation, many of the cases where the government has failed to take care, the Supreme Court has come in and passed laws to force them to take care of the citizens. And that also in a uniform manner, not in an arbitrary manner. Article 300A, no person can be deprived of his property save by authority of law, freezing of account at the inquiry stage, etc. 366(29)A is again a creature which was brought about because the states couldn't tax services. So they brought in certain changes in the constitution, forced it through. And now that part of it is also there. You have a GST law. You have a Schedule 2, which is not in line with the constitution. If it is not in line with the constitution, which shall prevail? Obviously, the constitution shall prevail. Legal maxims, some of them I'll touch. Submission of complete information in SSC's profile. Reduction of depth, frequency of audits. I don't have to do anything here. I don't have to prove my innocence. Why I have to give all this information which is available with the department itself? Replying to all queries to the audit team in writing. Please see that you take acknowledgement. I don't have to prove settled law. That is the most important. All these are based on settled law. You don't have to, you of course have to take care that these people who are going to deal with the department, they know the law to some extent. Right man should be there for handling audit, for example. Don't get into panga with department officers. Remember, bhais ke aage bansuri bajane se kuch nahi hoga. Unfortunately, you have about 40% bhaises on the other side. Simply say, this is the view of our consultant. If there is an opinion which you can share it with them. Tell them whatever view you have, you please give us in writing. What about circulars? I have told you that circulars are being used right, left, and center in GST. The entire explanatory notes to services, which is such a critical document, the parliament should have been involved. It is hosted by CBIC without even a notification. It is, they say that it's for the guidance of the SSC. If you follow it tomorrow, they may say, no, where is it said? Show me the notification, show me the law. That time you can use the Supreme Court judgment which I put here. Beneficial circulars. Supreme Court decision, Suchitra components very clearly says that you can rely on them and the department cannot take a different view. On the other hand, if there are circulars which are expanding the law, which are not in line with the law, they are non-est in law. That means they are never there. Ratan melting wires is a Supreme Court Constitutional Bench decision 2008. In all these cases, you should go for a writ or go for representation for correction to the GST Council and CBIC. My confidence in your representation being considered is very, very low as of now. This government has failed as far as GST is concerned. In case you get a notice, please do not make the mistake of thinking that it is very easy. Department officer will say, you just give me a small letter, I will close the matter. Please don't do something foolish like that. Understand the business, clarify the business. Whether the notice has appreciated your business, please understand. Do enough research. Don't do cut paste. Some old case, old reply, department officer himself will give you a soft copy. Cut pasting that without doing independent understanding, don't do. Update in case you are using cut paste at least for reference. Then see that you update, know the updated tax laws. See what is that reply. Reply may be related to 2017 and you are making a reply in 2021. Law has changed. Don't look only at favorable ones. When we look at something, when there is some decision against us or a show cause notice proposes to levy a tax, I look at favorable cases. I don't bother about unfavorable cases. If you want to be a good consultant or you want to safeguard your employer, please look at all contrary cases first. See how you can differentiate that. Then look at the favorable ones. As I said earlier, jurisdiction is an area which many of us do not understand, and therefore you have to understand jurisdiction very well if you are making a reply. That the technical objection of a jurisdiction, even if you are liable to pay, the court will throw it out. Tribunal itself will throw it out because jurisdiction is not there. Please see that you have a checklist, a standard operating procedure for reply, additional submissions, PH in virtual mode, appeal, etc. Use a checklist approach to avoid missing out important points. Be updated with all the allied laws also. There are a lot of laws which are linked to GST, and therefore you need to be updated with that. If you do not have much experience, have somebody who can validate your reply, because it's very important. This is a foundation. You make a mistake here, you may not be able to rectify at the High Court level. They will not get into facts at all. Those pleadings which you are supposed to do with the early authorities where verification is possible, if you bring it up before the High Court, they'll say, we can't verify all this. You should have done it at the show cause notice stage. Therefore, sorry, we will only interpret the law. Bigger the stake, the bigger the experience person you should go to. Analyzing, drafting, and pleading skills for all of us requires to be improved continuously. Just because I have made 100 replies or 1,000 replies doesn't mean I have reached the pinnacle. Every day is a learning. And now things have changed. Your virtual mode ensures that nobody is going to read your 100-page document you have given and 500 annexures you have given to that. This was possible in the old regime, not now. Now you have to write precisely. You have to give clearly. Maybe a 2-page summary has to be given, and that's all is going to be read. Therefore, all our skills need to be revisited. Your English language is going to become very, very important. You can't put words which have different meanings. You can't expect them to understand what you mean. It has to be simple and it has to be clear. Bombastic words cannot be used. Phrases cannot be used. This is nothing to do with impressing somebody. This is something to do with safeguarding your SSC or your employer. Therefore, we have to keep on learning, I feel, which is, of course, for a professional, it is lifelong. With this, I would like to end. The time allotted to me was 1.5 hours. What are the resources? Very important, because whatever I have said is only the tip of the iceberg. I have given you maybe about 50 to 60 tips, which you normally may not get in books. The CBIC gives some information, but again, it's not very efficient. Maybe some private sites which are updated very fast, maybe also which are referable easily could be used, but CBIC is a decent site, I would say. There is the Indirect Tax Committee of the ICI, which is also something which you can refer to. I was fortunate enough to be a chairman in the GST implementation time until I left in 2019. It was totally updated. Even every major issue which came, we used to write articles and upload it. Now, of course, it is in a little of a poor condition, but still the old articles, old books, which are numerous, more than 12 books are there, you could refer to if you are getting into any litigation issue. Our own website, Hiregange Academy website, there are certificate courses which are conducted. Even now there is a certificate course going on. After a few months, we also make the certificate course available free. I don't think there is anybody who's giving this free today in India, but we have certificate courses. Even this certificate course will come free. The old certificate course is also available. Even now it's available, which we did in, I think, September last year. That is available free. So if the basic certificate course and the uh, advanced certificate course is there. Huge number of articles are there, videos are there, webcasts are there. Nowadays we are making shorter webcasts because people are not willing to listen to webcasts like this of more than 80 minutes, 90 minutes and all. Updated booklets and books are available in various from the institute as well as from this website. You can possibly look at them. Compendium of issues and solutions, sectoral books are there. If you are in real estate, better to look at the real estate book. Health and pharma, there are special books. Textiles, there may be many more. And many more will come. Slowly people have realized that sectoral verticals are better to look at because they have their own specialities. Online resources have become a wonderful thing in this decade. Now almost everything is available online. Some of them have subscription, some of them are available free. I am using Tax Sutra, LinkedIn, Tax Guru for reference sometimes, and CA Club sometimes. I would like to thank each and every one of you for your generous listening. I know it has been very difficult going through such a one-sided affair. In normal training courses, this would be a two-way affair, and you would have a chance to come back to us. In keeping with that, for about a week, we'll keep, after this is put online, you can write to me at madhukar@hiregange.com, and I would be glad to either answer the query or get it answered. Thank you very much. Be safe and see that we support the government in making our life and their life easier. Thank you very much.